Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Living a Graceful Life. I'm Tracy Gelb, so excited to have my guest on this evening, Karen Stein. And she is a fountain of information on all sorts of amazing, interesting things from hair testing to different types of minerals to things to do with heavy metals. And I have a lot of questions, so I'm just going to start by thanking you for being here so much, Karen.
Thank
And I
you.
want to hear a little bit about you, please.
Yes, so I basically have been in the health and wellness arena for many years and got into it based on um, my husband having five rare cancers that all had a 5 to 15% chance of survival. And he actually had no chemotherapy at all, but is fine today, 25 years later.
Wow.
And yes. And so just by researching at the time, that this was way before the internet, so you couldn't just sit there and look up things, but by meeting with experts and researching, I really came upon this theory that everything with our health is a puzzle, and there's many pieces to the puzzle, and it's very hard to just have optimal health by addressing one piece of the puzzle, and every piece is important, but just eating healthy or just exercise or just whatever, it's very hard to have optimal health because our guts are a mess. We can eat the best foods, but how much are we actually absorbing? And we have genetics involved there. How, we have inhibited detox from genes and things like that. So every little piece is important, and removing toxins became a very big thing for me. And you have this overall body burden, and when the body gets, you have a bucket, and the bucket can get filled, you have kidney, liver, filtering organs, but when the bucket's overflowing with toxins, then these systems shut down and then disease can set in. So removing toxins from our life became a very big thing for me. And I came upon hair testing, which we can talk about now or later or whatever.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So I came upon hair testing, which is hair follicle testing of a little piece of very little piece of the root hair. And if people are you probably all familiar with companies that drug test, they use hair. And they use that over urine or blood or anything like that because it holds information over time. And the other tests can be affected by what you eat. So, for instance, if you go get blood work done and you eat a banana, you go get your blood work done, you might see that your potassium is high. You might see your potassium is normal. You could truly be potassium deficient, which can cause all kinds of different symptoms from heart palpitation, muscle cramping, different things. But it was affected by what you ate, that banana. Hair testing is what's held over time, over 3 months of time in the hair. So we can look at all these minerals. And then I trained with a doctor from Australia and Wendy Myers, who has a big podcast called Myers Detox Podcast, on how to analyze the data in this test. So lots of people run these tests, but it's like, what do you do with that information? So I can analyze using ratios of minerals. We can look at body systems overall balancing, not diagnostically, but balanced of hormones, adrenal fatigue, your electrolytes, which are involved in everything from cardiovascular, your overall vitality, infections and things like that. So anyway, let alone heavy metals, which the hair is the gold standard by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, gold standards for heavy metals, because once again, it's what's held in your body over time and not what you're purging. And your body stores these things away in the fat layer. It's the first place that all toxins and heavy metals and things, molds too. Mold detox and heavy metal detox are very similar. And your body stores all this away in the fat and then moves it off to different storage sites. So aluminum goes to the brain. That's why it's linked with Alzheimer's and dementia. Lead goes to the bones. Uranium goes to the kidneys, things like that. So anyway, then I just put together personalized programs of very gentle protocols that detox these different toxins, and then balancing the minerals is super important because that also is involved in heavy metals.
That's so interesting. And let me ask you something. Does everybody have heavy metals?
Everybody has heavy metals.
They
And if
do.
they do, and in our world, they're in everything. They're in the water, they're in your clothing, the furniture, the air you're breathing, they're in our food, they're in the ground. And so if we see a hair test, some people get their hair test done, and then if it's your first hair test and you haven't been actively detoxing and there's no
Yeah.
metals, they're like, great, I don't have any heavy metals. And that's actually not the case. They probably have the MTHFR or COMT genes, and which inhibit detox pathways. So they're not good at detoxing, or their body isn't able to detox till those pathways are opened, or they're so weak, or they have adrenal fatigue, or their body just doesn't have the energy to do it. So it just means that they're stored away in the body and they're not coming out. And then on a follow-up hair test, which is really funny, if you see really high levels of metals on your next hair test, we clap our hands and say, yay, because now you're detoxing. So you're purging and they're actually
Ah.
coming out. So this is why the hair test has to be interpreted. When you look at things, it's not what it seems. So
Oh, that's
basically.
really interesting. And I also wanted to ask you, how do minerals, a mineral imbalance, how does it make the levels worse?
Yes. So minerals and metals share receptors. And
Okay.
when you have mineral deficiencies, like a lot of people have electrolyte deficiencies, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, when all these different minerals, copper, iron, are low, it allows heavy metals and toxins to come into that receptor and take hold. So an easy way to start detoxing is to balance these mineral levels. And by replenishing those levels, it's going to start pushing off the metals that are sharing that receptor. But then you have to have the proper types of binders on board to bind them and get them out of the body. Because otherwise, what happens is people will do saunas, they'll do foot baths, they'll do juice cleanses. Anything you do can start a detox, even running, going for a run.
Yeah.
But if you start to, or losing weight, if you start to purge all of these toxins and things and you don't bind them and get them out of the body, they basically start all over again and they get reabsorbed back in the gut and go back into the fat, and they just start their process right over. So it's really, really important. And I pick the binders that people would use based on certain binders have an affinity for certain metals. Certain people have they have things going on, like there's certain binders that help cancer, that help heart, help calcifications in the arteries. So one binder might be better for somebody than another. And so it's kind of a customized program, but that is how they are intertwined there. And being mineral deficient, which many, many people are, even people tell me all the time, oh, I drink electrolytes every day, or I take these trace minerals, and then you do their hair test and they're still like tanked, because you can also have gut absorption issues, and no matter how much you're taking, you just aren't absorbing. So
So when you say a binder, are you actually giving them as part of the protocol, they're having the minerals like, and is it, I'm going to ask you because the way that you're a colleague of my mom's, but I also discovered you during the time of the pandemic when I discovered some mineral, and I call them shots, but and I don't mean a vaccine shot. I mean a little mineral shot, and this is how I these little tiny pellets. The mineral shots were for, I originally got them. My closest friend got COVID, and it was at the beginning when nobody knew what was going on, and my mom had said, let's try these. And my friend was in really, really bad shape. We ordered her, and I'm pretty sure if the protocol I remember correctly was 2 shots a day, it could have been three for a week or 6 days or maybe five, but it helped her. She was better. She was absolutely better. Are these what you're giving people, recommending or to people for them to release the metals or reduce?
nope. So those are a piece of the puzzle, and
Okay.
they're an important piece of the puzzle, and they serve, and we can talk about those, and I will, and they serve certain purposes,
Okay.
and they enhance health and immune support in certain ways. But what I'm actually talking about are the individual minerals them. And this is an interesting point you just made me think of. That little, and it's called activated minerals now. It was called,
Okay.
people thought it was a shot. So it's called a mineral shot. And then that kind of got confusing. So I call it activated minerals. But the amount of minerals, and we have lab testing on this, that's actually in there are minuscule. They're trace amounts. So that's the magic of that shot, is how it's working is not even because you're taking minerals. The minerals carry the electrical charge, and I'll talk about that more. But just to finish on the hair testing, I'm actually talking about minerals and the doses and things that you would take when you take zinc, or you take,
Oh,
magnesium or calcium, or and a lot of food sources or not, but those are truly minerals, and they have a play with the heavy metals. So this product you're talking about, the amounts are absolutely almost undetectable, which is really what's so amazing about the product, because it's a patented electrical charge that makes the product work. So,
oh, okay. So I apologize. I jumped ahead. I got
no,
excited
no,
because I
yeah,
have been so eager to speak with you and also to speak about the when I tell people when people have told me, I've suffered COVID or long-term COVID or different types of things, I don't ever recommend something that I don't use. Never. I never have. I won't. My mother
me too.
doesn't. We don't.
Mhm.
So for me, I've used this when I haven't, I've been very blessed. I've never gotten COVID, but there've been times that I've been exposed to people that have either had it or been, just had some different situations. So I've just opened up one of the shots, shaken it and had it and felt better instantly. It's been miraculous. So
Yeah,
I'm grateful. And I also do the little pellets, the little tiny pellets 3 or 4 times a day. I
yes.
take those. And um, would you consider, like, when you're talking about the heavy metals, how does that coincide with viruses, or is that
Well, well, first of all, heavy metals just weaken your body. They affect your gut. They can affect your thyroid. They affect your immunity in general because your body's dealing with them. But there isn't any kind of a direct correlation with the heavy metals and viruses per se. Um, but having adrenal fatigue, which are low when you have sodium and potassium that's tanked, you have adrenal fatigue. You have high calcium, magnesium, which is artificial due to stress, and low sodium, potassium. That's adrenal fatigue on a hair test. And I can see these things. And when you have that, you're so depleted and so exhausted, sure, you're more open to viruses. There's also mineral imbalances, like your copper and your iron level dictate viral, not that you're going to get a virus more, but if those are out of balance, you might get um, viruses, uh, infections. You might get viral infections over bacteria. Some people are always getting bacterial infections. Some people are always getting viral infections. That can be an imbalance in copper and iron. And when we balance that out, you won't have that imbalance anymore. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're more prone to getting an infection. It just means that if you got one, if that's imbalanced, it might be one over the other. And back in the days of COVID, we didn't want to be more prone to viral infections, but so balancing that out, it just helps in that system. The activated minerals work on any virus and many bacteria, because again, it's this electrical charge. So do you want me to speak
Yes,
about that a little
please.
bit?
I would
Okay.
love you to. Yes, please.
Okay. So basically, and again, just like you said, you don't use anything you don't use yourself, you don't recommend anything you don't use yourself. Same for
Yes.
me. So how did I find this product? So I told you about my husband having the cancers. He, as a result of a rare lung cancer, he only had one lung. And so back in the days when the virus came along, that was very concerning. And we had moved to Miami and the height of the outbreak, and the mover was sick. And so we had no choice, because everything we owned and all the furniture was on the moving van. It had to come
Yeah.
off and come in the house. So he ended up the next 2 days later starting to get very, very sick. And somebody had told me about this scientist that invented this product, and this is where the product came from. This scientist built aquariums, and he created a product for aquariums that killed virus and bacteria without harming the fish. And he would put it in the water. And his wife worked in a hospital in the COVID wards in the early day, in the very beginning. And so he thought, well, she's going to come home and have it, get us sick. So I wonder if we try this for ourselves, it would work as well as it does for the fish. And they did, and it did. And so basically, and here's the reason why. So we can say that it supports immune function
Hmm.
because it is lab tested, it's FDA safe. What is that? You know, all the ingredients
Yes.
are safe because it's basically these trace amounts of minerals. Babies can take it, animals can take it. But it has an electrical charge, and that's the patented part of this. And when I saw what it did, which is really life saving, that I witnessed, I wanted to be able to get that to people and get it to my clients. And so I actually, worked with him to get this product out there. And I created the other product, the pellets, I'll talk about in a minute, to go with it. But so it has an electrical charge, and it has a positive charge. And all viruses, most bacteria, some cancer cells even have a negative net surface charge. And so basically a positive and a negative, they counteract each other, and that's it. And that's really how it works. It works with this electrical charge, and that's why it's completely safe. You could take 20 of those a day. I mean, it does, that's just
Yeah.
money. I mean, it can't hurt you. As I said, I've had babies take this. I give it to my dog, and it helps. This type of a thing helps with a lot of different things. It puts oxygen in the blood. Um, so it helps people that have breathing issues or with asthma. It helps with pain sometimes, because sometimes in injuries or arthritis, sometimes infections set in these areas of injury and things like that. So there's lots of different uses, but um, basically it's a great thing to have on hand. It doesn't really expire. We say 2 years, but at room temperature, but it really doesn't, because nothing can really grow in it. And you can, if the earlier you take it, if you think about trying to negate a virus, viruses replicate, right? And the longer you're sick, the more viral load you have. You can have billions. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes. So the earlier you take something, the quicker it is to eradicate it, and then the less you need. The longer you wait, you're kind of working backwards, and you might need more. But to your point, you took 2 a day, you could take 2 a day, 3 a day. But then, like you've probably experienced, you can use it as a support. You just feel under the weather, you're not feeling right. You take one, and you could probably attest to this. Usually the next day I wake up perfectly fine. And that's just
Yes.
one. So you're going to save money actually by taking it as soon as you feel something and having them on hand. But people don't do that. So the situations always occur with the emergency phone call on a Friday night with $100 in overnight FedEx, because that's what happens. But the better thing to do is to kind of just have these in your medicine cabinet. The other thing, I don't know if you guys do this, I think I talked to you about it, is you can make a spray out of it, and you can
Yes.
spray your mouth daily. And because viruses all come in your mouth, they usually come in your mouth. You can spray your nose, but and they hang out there for 2 or 3 days typically before they become systemic. So if after you come home, or you're around people that weren't feeling well, or some had a cold or whatever it is, and you can spray your mouth, then you're kind of, that's like an immune support, and that makes one of those last a long, long time. I mean, probably a month or more. um,
Wow.
so yeah.
And you use it with, I've read the directions. I just haven't done the spray yet, which I need to. So just you use it just with the amount that's in here
Yeah, in
for
the
the spray?
directions, yeah, it's really the reason I even have directions is because the nozzle can clog because of
Okay.
the minerals in there. And so I recommend buying like glass nasal spray bottles. You can get them on Amazon or at Whole Foods, because it's a bigger opening. I find it, you can still spray your mouth with it, but it's less likely to clog than a spray bottle. But either way, if it clogs, you should just have a few of them on hand. But the directions are basically, you can read them. Now I don't want to take a lot of time, but whatever the grains are that are left in the bottom of the bottle, after you kind of shake it, let it sit for 10, count to 10, and then slowly pour it. If you don't put those in, that's better, because otherwise that's the only reason. It's just, we don't,
Oh,
just
okay.
about the nozzle clogging up with the minerals, but yeah. Yep.
Oh, I mean, I've recommended it to everybody from friends of mine to we've helped my uncle now who recently has had long-term COVID after a stroke. And I mean, I swear by them. Like I said, I'm not ever gonna something that I haven't used. And I've never had to, thank goodness. My friend has had to use a few in one day. I think at the most one day I used two, and that was only because I'd been around so many people that I found out later at one point during the time of the pandemic, there was a lot of COVID going around I teach in assisted living memory cares. And there was one day that I did use two. Otherwise, there's been from time, and I do like to keep, I have four on hand right now. I keep them as a preventative thing. Everything that I try to do in my life is preventative, from the supplementation to the, Healy frequency, to the foods that we eat, to the hydrogen water that we have. We have an alkaline water machine, all of these things to try to make sure that I don't bring anything to myself or my mom or my friends or family. And I feel that having these, we have a kind of a motto, my mom and I, which is, and everybody's different. Our health is priceless and we value it in that way. There's no expense spared. Credit cards are our friends at this point in time, and hoping in the future, but we want to get to the future where we are healthy and can continue working and continue healing and helping people in any way we can. So for me, I know it is a little bit pricey, and that's how I look at it, but so are the supplements that we use, and so is, all the different things that we use this as a lifestyle choice. Everything we buy, I can do a Whole Foods run for, $100 and
Yeah.
get 9 things. So
Yeah.
I'm really good with this. I'm a
Yeah.
believer, and I really mean that. And I wanted to ask you another thing, and I think it's about the frequency imprints and
Hmm.
how they can be customized.
Yes. And I just want to say one thing about what you said about the mineral shots too, because what I think people don't understand, and when you're taking a supplement that you're taking every day forever, so you're buying every single month,
Yeah.
that adds up, and so this is a one-time thing. You take it, it works, you're done, and then hopefully you don't need it again for a very long time, right? So I actually think if you think about it that way, and they're $40, by the way, for a bottle. But if you think about it that way, then it really doesn't add up to as much as you think about taking some supplement and having to rebuy it and be taking it ongoing forever. But the imprints are very interesting. So they're like 21st century homeopathy, if you think about it in that way, electro homeopathy. So somehow I ended up in all this electro stuff. It's a very similar thing, because it puts an electrical charge in the body, so it's transferring energy into the body. And it's not dissimilar in theory of like the Healy, hemp, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. But there's another, I guess I like all these scientists. There's another scientist I met when I was out in Colorado, and this guy's from Russia, and he's very, very interesting. And he developed something where um, practitioners can actually write. I actually kind of write like what I call a recipe of different frequencies that can be imprinted in water. But I came up with these pellets that you have, which are different
Mm,
than, so when you buy those blue tubes of the boron, whatever, the
yeah.
homeopathics, and those are different sweeteners and other ingredients in those pellets. But these I've sourced are just 100% organic sugar. And the 5 of them that you would take have less than a half of a gram of sugar, all 5. So even if someone was like diabetic, technically it would be okay. And that's all that's there. The reason I switched from water, which I used to do this ultra purified water and everything, but water holds frequency for about 30 days. The pellets the sugar holds frequency for months, about 3 months or longer. So it will last longer, and it's super easy to take because you can take them with you and you just take them at any time. How it differs from homeopathy is that with homeopathy, that's very dose specific.
Mm,
You have to get the right thing and you have to take the right amount. And you can have a healing crisis if you take too much of it. You can get a similar effect of what you're trying to treat. With this, it isn't. So you literally could take that whole bottle, nothing would happen. It's information. And when the body gets too much information, all it does is it says, okay, I'm full of information. I'm not taking in any more information. Nothing happens. And so what's the beauty of these two is pregnant women can take it, children can take it. So people who can't even take other supplements, and instead of some of these other PEMF frequencies and things that maybe address feelings, injuries, generalities, these can be all kinds of things. There's thousands of possibilities. They can even be the frequency of a medication that you wouldn't want to take. Okay. So, but you can get what the frequency, what was intended of that. And so like my Go Healthy one that you have there, I started out with customized ones and I can do that, but some were people love so much that there's certain ones that I just do now. So I have one called Super Sleep and I have that one called Go Healthy. I have a painless one, a stressless one. You can put the imprint of things in, like the imprint of Valium, and then you can put the imprint of a calming herb and the imprint of you can put an imprint of a homeopathy remedy. You can put all these together and there's literally nothing there, but your body's taking in the information of what that was meant to do. And it's incredible how much these things work. And I mean, you could put in the sleep one, you can put in the imprint of something to sleep. You could put in the imprint of THC or CBD and the imprint of valerian root and these all come together and then the body just takes in that information. So the Go Healthy one that you have
Mm.
is, I just found I was using it like you were using it, kind of like preventively. It's easy to take. You can basically take them 3 times a day, 5 pellets. If you take 8 pellets, it doesn't matter. If you take 4 pellets, it doesn't matter. But it works somehow. And it boosts the mineral shot. And I've experienced this myself. And when I was sick a couple times, I don't get sick very often, but I was sick a couple times and I I don't know, I just combined them and I was like, wow. And I know very, very well how the mineral shot or the activated minerals reacts with me. And so I knew, that this took it to another level, and it really does. It
But
really
let
does.
me ask you, because I take them every day, the
Yeah, that's
pellets.
fine.
So it doesn't matter, even though I'm not taking the mineral shots.
Nope.
I'm still just taking because I take them at least 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It just makes
And
me feel good. I'm going to be
yeah,
honest.
it does. And if you have little things brewing or whatever, then it would address that. There's the imprint of lots of different things in there. There's the imprint of silver there, which would kill, there's the imprint of like the Z pack. There's the image, it's just the imprint, it's just the information of it. So things that would help to support, you know, taking care of anything you were encountering. So yes, that makes sense to me that that would work in that way. And I use that too, like that. But
And just so people know, I think it's only $40.
yeah, and that's
But
a
the little,
month supply. If you take it
yes,
3 times a day, every day for a month, that's
and
how
I
much.
do.
Yeah. But
I
if you,
do.
yeah. But like the sleep one, the super sleep, you're not going to take 3 times a day unless you woke up in the middle of the night, you could take it again. But so that one would last you a lot longer than a month too. So
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I can't believe the time. We only have a minute or two, so I do want to ask you, where can people reach you? How can
yes.
they find you?
So you can find me at my website is Go Healthy with Karen, KAREN.com. And I have a new website I just launched in a new newsletter that's going to be huge and exciting, called Non-Tox U, like university. So NONTOXU.com.
Okay.
And that's all about getting chemicals out of building products. I took that over from someone who took it over from the original Deborah Lynn Dad. If any of you have ever heard about her, she was like the pioneer of, wrote a book getting toxins out of all kinds of products and building materials and cookware. And that's very exciting. So you can contact me through either of those. Or my email is Karen at either of those, nontoxu.com or gohealthywithkaren.com.
Oh,
So
thank you. This has been so interesting, and I've been wanting to chat with you. And I also, if anybody wants to reach out to me, my email is my name, my full name, Tracy Gelb, TracyGelb at hotmail.com, and I can pass on any information if anybody needs to. I swear by these. I really mean that, and I'm very honored and blessed to have you here and grateful, and I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.